June 11, 1885, George Smith Patton Jr. was born in San Gabriel, California, into a family whose history and expectations would shape the contours of his extraordinary life. Even as a boy, Patton exhibited traits that would define him: audacity, an unrelenting drive, and a competitive spirit that pushed him to excel in everything he attempted, from horseback riding to academics to military drills. His early years were steeped in stories of his ancestors' valor, and young Patton internalized a vision of honor, courage, and relentless achievement. By the time he entered the Virginia Military Institute and later the United States Military Academy at West Point, Patton's personality had already fused discipline, intensity, and a hunger for recognition. He was known for his strict adherence to physical fitness, his obsession with precision, and an innate understanding that leadership demanded both presence and decisiveness. West Point refined his tactical intellect but could not contain his audacity. He consistently sought opportunities to stand out, to lead, and to assert his individuality in ways that sometimes challenged tradition. Following his graduation, Patton's early military career included postings in the cavalry, where he honed skills in horsemanship, tactics, and maneuver warfare, a foundation that would later define his approach to armored combat. He served in the Pancho Villa expedition, experiencing real-world operations that tested both courage and leadership under pressure. Letters from this period reveal a young officer who was fiercely competitive, highly self-aware, and acutely conscious of his personal and professional legacy. By the time World War I erupted, Patton had begun to develop the principles that would later define him: speed, audacity, decisive action, and the integration of psychological insight with operational planning. Though his role in the first global conflict was limited, he embraced new technologies such as tanks and mechanized warfare, seeing in them the future of combat. Patton's writings, including letters and diaries from the interwar period, reveal a man obsessed with preparation, excellence, and the development of a personal philosophy of war and leadership. He studied history, tactics, and the psychology of command, forging an understanding that success depended on a combination of intellect, courage, audacity, and the ability to inspire others. When the United States entered World War II, Patton emerged as a visionary commander, deeply familiar with both traditional military theory and the revolutionary potential of armored warfare. His early campaigns in North Africa demonstrated his genius for maneuver, speed, and psychological dominance over the enemy. He pushed his units relentlessly, exploiting weaknesses, improvising attacks, and demonstrating an intuitive grasp of timing and terrain. Letters and after-action reports emphasize both his brilliance and his fiery temperament. He was as demanding and unpredictable as he was effective, inspiring loyalty in some and fear in others. Patton's leadership style was rooted in personal example. He led from the front, inspected units under fire, and maintained relentless energy that motivated soldiers to extraordinary feats. Yet this audacity came with flaws: impatience with bureaucracy, occasional insensitivity to protocol, and a temper that sometimes threatened to overshadow strategy. His contemporaries often remarked on his contradictions: a man of immense courage and tactical brilliance, yet prone to rash statements and impulsive actions. By 1943, in the Sicily campaign, Patton's audacity and speed of maneuver became legendary. He pushed forward with vigor, taking cities and strategic points faster than anticipated, demonstrating both operational brilliance and a flair for dramatics. His ability to coordinate armor, infantry, and artillery, combined with a deep understanding of human psychology, allowed him to outmaneuver enemies repeatedly. Letters to family reveal his pride, his self-awareness, and occasional frustrations with both superiors and subordinate officers who failed to match his energy or decisiveness. Yet even at the height of his success, Patton remained human. He experienced doubt, fatigue, and the weight of responsibility for lives in his command. His memoirs and letters show a man acutely aware of the human cost of war, yet committed to decisive action and the pursuit of victory at all costs. In 1944, as the Allies prepared for the Normandy invasion, Patton's reputation was already monumental. Though initially sidelined in the deception plan that misled the Germans about the location of the invasion, he understood the strategic value of feints and misdirection. His Third Army, once activated after the breakout from Normandy, moved with unprecedented speed across France, exploiting gaps, seizing towns, and overwhelming German defenses. Soldiers' letters and diaries from this period describe the audacity and energy of their commander. Tanks racing across fields, infantry advancing at a relentless pace, and artillery strikes synchronized with precision and boldness. Patton's operational philosophy, speed, momentum, audacity, and leadership from the front, turned battles into dramatic displays of strategic genius, while simultaneously exacting a heavy toll on soldiers and resources. By late 1944, the Third Army had carved an almost unstoppable path across France. Yet the human cost and the strain of continuous advance weighed heavily on both the men and Patton himself. He understood the interplay of morale, fear, and confidence, and leveraged his presence to maintain determination in exhausted troops. Letters, memoirs, and official reports highlight his belief that leadership required more than orders. It required visibility, decisiveness, and a willingness to share danger with those he commanded. Then came December 1944, the Ardennes, the German, counteroffensive, and the Battle of the Bulge. Patton faced the ultimate test of his philosophy and leadership. Snow, fog, and freezing temperatures slowed movement, isolated units, and complicated logistics. Yet he refused to wait for perfect conditions. Engineers cleared frozen roads, tanks pushed forward through ice, and infantry trudged alongside, all guided by the relentless energy of a commander who thrived in chaos. Patton's prayer for favorable weather, distributed among his men, symbolized both faith and the human desire for control in uncontrollable circumstances, reinforcing morale and psychological readiness. Bastogne, under siege by German forces, became the focal point of his genius. His audacious maneuvering, rapid coordination of armor and infantry, and personal presence on the battlefield enabled the relief of the encircled 101st Airborne, reversing a dire situation and breaking the momentum of the German offensive. The winter campaign illustrated the full spectrum of Patton's abilities: operational brilliance, audacity, personal courage, and psychological insight, all combined to convert potential disaster into historic victory. Letters and diaries from soldiers convey awe at his energy, decisiveness, and ability to inspire, while also acknowledging the exhaustion, danger, and sacrifices endured. Patton's personality, simultaneously inspiring and intimidating, drove both men and machines to feats they might not have achieved under any other commander. By the end of December 1944, the Ardennes counteroffensive had collapsed, Bastogne was relieved, and the Third Army held the initiative. Patton's blend of audacity, speed, and leadership under extreme conditions had shifted the course of the battle and cemented his reputation as one of history's most dynamic and controversial commanders. His memoirs, letters, and diaries reveal a man of contrasts, a visionary strategist and relentless leader, yet flawed, human, and deeply aware of the weight of command. Understanding Patton requires seeing both sides: the audacious, larger-than-life general who reshaped battles, and the real man with fears, doubts, and imperfections who navigated the extremes of war, with unrelenting determination and courage. January 1st, 1945, the new year began amidst the aftermath of the Ardennes, a frozen landscape littered with the debris of battle, exhausted soldiers, and shattered enemy positions. Yet Patton's mind was already moving faster than any report or map could contain. The German offensive had been repelled, but the war was far from over, and the Third Army, under his command, needed to maintain momentum to exploit the weakness of a retreating enemy. Patton's energy, seemingly boundless, drove him to inspect forward units personally, moving through icy roads, inspecting tanks and artillery positions, and speaking directly with officers and enlisted men alike, instilling confidence, urgency, and a relentless sense of purpose. His leadership was a force multiplier. Soldiers knew that the audacity and speed he demanded were not abstract ideals, but a lived example, and they followed with courage, despite fatigue, freezing temperatures, and continuous danger. Letters and diaries from this period reveal a man deeply attuned to both strategy and psychology. He understood that morale, perception, and the fear of hesitation were as decisive as firepower and terrain. He combined speed of maneuver with psychological pressure, striking where the enemy was weakest and forcing decisions before they were ready, a principle that had defined every campaign of his career. In the weeks following Bastogne, Patton's Third Army surged across the Saar and Moselle regions, capturing towns, bridges, and supply depots, relentlessly exploiting the disarray of German forces. His operational brilliance lay in his ability to integrate armored columns, infantry advances, and artillery strikes into a synchronized whole, allowing rapid advances across difficult terrain while minimizing friendly casualties when possible. Yet Patton was acutely aware of human limitations. Exhaustion, cold, and the constant presence of death weighed heavily on men, and his leadership balanced the push for audacity with encouragement, discipline, and personal example. By February 1945, the Third Army was moving toward the Rhine, and Patton's reputation had become legendary among both allies and enemies. Soldiers spoke of his energy, his insistence on pushing forward, and his uncanny ability to make instantaneous decisions under pressure, often reshaping the battlefield within hours. His own memoirs and letters reflect pride in the audacity of maneuvers, but also frustration at bureaucracy, the slowness of other commanders, and the inefficiency of logistics, showing a man both larger than life and humanly fallible. Patton's ability to blend tactical innovation with psychological insight reached new heights during the drive into Germany. He understood that speed and decisiveness could paralyze enemy decision-making, creating opportunities for encirclement, surrender, or rout. Infantry, armor, and artillery were coordinated like the gears of a well-oiled machine, yet always infused with the human energy of soldiers inspired by his presence and example. By March 1945, Patton's forces were poised to cross the Rhine, a strategic objective that would open the heart of Germany to the Allies. His meticulous planning, audacious timing, and relentless pursuit of momentum ensured that crossings were executed rapidly, overwhelming enemy defenses and minimizing opportunities for counterattack. Letters from soldiers describe the exhilaration and fear of moving under fire, the chaos of rapid maneuver, and the electric energy of a commander who was everywhere at once, inspiring, directing, and demanding excellence. Patton's personality, fierce, audacious, demanding, was inseparable from his success. He pushed men beyond what they thought possible, demanded speed, decisiveness, and courage, and rewarded initiative and boldness, creating a culture in which audacity became operational doctrine. Yet he remained human. Letters, diaries, and memoirs reveal a man who experienced doubt, reflected on mistakes, and understood the burden of command on both himself and his soldiers. As April 1945 approached, Patton's Third Army moved deeper into southern Germany, capturing key cities, liberating towns, and confronting the remnants of German resistance with relentless energy. His operational brilliance, combined with personal courage and strategic audacity, allowed the Allies to advance faster than expected, disrupting enemy lines and accelerating the end of the war in Europe. Patton's memoirs provide insight into his mindset. He valued decisiveness, initiative, and speed above all, yet recognized the cost of war, the bravery of soldiers, and the unpredictable chaos of combat. He combined calculation with instinct, intellect with audacity, and operational brilliance with psychological mastery, creating a force that was as terrifying to the enemy as it was inspiring to his men. By May 1945, as Germany's surrender loomed, Patton's Third Army had carved a path across Europe that few could match. His presence on the front, his relentless energy, and his refusal to accept hesitation had transformed chaos into order, adversity into victory. Letters and memoirs from soldiers speak of exhaustion, triumph, and awe at the commander whose audacity had repeatedly defied expectations. Yet Patton remained complex and human. He was proud, sometimes impulsive, occasionally flawed, yet always committed to the principle that leadership required courage, energy, and personal example. He understood that to inspire men, a commander had to share danger, move decisively, and act boldly even when circumstances were adverse. Patton's legacy was not merely in victories or captured towns, but in the spirit, energy, and audacity he instilled in his soldiers, in the psychological edge he imposed on the enemy, and in the enduring lessons of leadership, momentum, and decisiveness. Beyond the battlefield, letters reveal a man reflective, at times vulnerable, who grappled with the human cost of war, the losses of comrades, and the weight of decisions that determined life or death. Understanding Patton requires acknowledging both extremes, the audacious, larger-than-life general who shaped history, and the human being who experienced fear, doubt, and imperfection. His life and campaigns illustrate that greatness in leadership arises not from perfection, but from audacity, energy, decisiveness, and the relentless pursuit of objectives, even under immense pressure and adversity. Patton's blend of operational brilliance, personal courage, psychological insight, and larger-than-life presence ensured that the Third Army achieved results that were extraordinary, shaping the course of World War II and leaving a legacy that continues to inspire military professionals and historians alike. May 1st, 1945, dawn broke over Germany, the war in Europe nearing its climactic conclusion, and General George S. Patton, Jr. remained in relentless motion, driving the Third Army forward with the energy and audacity that had defined his entire career. Cities that had resisted for years fell under the coordinated pressure of armored columns, infantry advances, and precise artillery strikes, executed with the seamless orchestration that only Patton could command. He moved from town to town, inspecting positions, conferring with commanders, and speaking directly to troops. His presence a force multiplier that lifted morale, inspired courage, and ensured that speed and momentum remained unbroken. The German army, fractured, demoralized, and outmaneuvered, found itself unable to respond to the rapid advances, and Patton's combination of tactical brilliance and psychological dominance dictated the pace of the final days of combat. Letters and diaries from soldiers reveal a mix of awe and exhaustion, describing tanks roaring through shattered streets, infantry pressing forward under fire, artillery shells shaking city blocks, and the commanding voice of a general whose energy seemed inexhaustible and whose strategic mind orchestrated chaos into victory. Patton's operational genius lay not only in maneuver warfare, but in his understanding of the human dimension of command. Courage, morale, and initiative were as decisive as firepower and terrain. By early May, Allied forces were converging on the heart of Germany, and Patton's Third Army had carved a path that reshaped the strategic map, capturing key cities, supply depots, and enemy personnel, while minimizing opportunities for organized resistance. Yet, Patton remained human, acutely aware of the cost of war, the sacrifices of soldiers, and the fragility of life amidst chaos. Letters and memoirs reveal his reflections on courage, loss, and responsibility, illustrating a man who combined audacity and decisiveness with empathy and awareness of the human toll of his decisions. On May 7, 1945, Germany formally surrendered, and while the war in Europe had ended, Patton's responsibilities as a commander were far from over. He oversaw the occupation, the processing of prisoners, and the stabilization of liberated areas, balancing authority with fairness, discipline with humanity. His diaries from this period reveal a man constantly engaged, evaluating operations, reflecting on strategy, and observing the complexities of leadership in peacetime. Beyond military accomplishments, Patton's personality remained as vivid and controversial as ever. Known for his charisma, impulsiveness, and sometimes fiery temper, he navigated the challenges of command with a combination of audacity, intellect, and an unwavering belief in personal example. Letters from colleagues and soldiers capture the contradictions of a man who was at once inspiring and intimidating, brilliant and occasionally reckless, yet always committed to the principles that had guided him throughout his career: speed, decisiveness, audacity, and leadership from the front. In the post-war months, Patton's life continued to reflect the larger-than-life personality that history remembers. He engaged in discussions with Allied leadership, oversaw occupation duties, and traveled through a devastated Europe, observing the consequences of conflict and reflecting on the human dimensions of leadership, responsibility, and strategy. His memoirs, letters, and diaries illuminate a man who grappled with both the glory and the burdens of command, the exhilaration of success, and the sorrow of loss. By 1946, Patton's reputation had become legendary, yet controversies remained. Known for blunt opinions, sometimes impulsive statements, and an unfiltered personality, he elicited both admiration and criticism from peers, superiors, and the public. His life exemplified the tension between audacity and diplomacy, operational brilliance and human fallibility. Despite these complexities, Patton's achievements during World War II, from North Africa to Sicily, Normandy, the Ardennes, and deep into Germany, remained undeniable, illustrating the transformative power of audacity, energy, speed, and personal leadership. Letters from soldiers, officers, and historians alike recount not only the victories, but the character of a man who inspired courage, demanded excellence, and led from the front, leaving an enduring imprint on those who served with him and on military history itself. Patton's understanding of leadership as both an operational and psychological endeavor ensured that his impact extended beyond mere tactical success. He shaped the ethos, morale, and effectiveness of the men under his command, creating a force that could execute audacious maneuvers and achieve extraordinary results under the most extreme conditions. As 1947 approached, with the publication of War as I Knew It, Patton's reflections reached a wider audience, providing insight into his strategies, philosophy, and personality. The memoir revealed a man who combined intellectual rigor, personal courage, operational genius, and an acute understanding of the human dimensions of warfare. It also revealed a man who recognized his flaws, fears, and humanity, demonstrating that even the most audacious and larger-than-life figures are fundamentally human, capable of error, reflection, and growth. Patton's legacy was already cemented, yet it was this combination of brilliance, audacity, and humanity that made him enduringly relevant. A commander who shaped battles, inspired men, and demonstrated that leadership required energy, decisiveness, and presence as much as intellect and strategy. Soldiers who served under him remembered tanks sliding across snow, infantry advancing through forests, artillery hammering positions, and the booming voice of a general who refused to accept hesitation, creating a rhythm of movement and courage that defined entire campaigns. The human stories, fear, exhaustion, courage, sacrifice, intertwined with operational brilliance, creating a legacy that remains instructive and inspirational. By the end of his life, Patton had experienced triumph and controversy, audacity and error, brilliance and humanity, leaving a complex portrait of a man whose energy, vision, and courage defined an era, shaped the course of World War II, and continues to captivate historians, soldiers, and civilians alike. His life illustrates that greatness arises not from perfection, but from audacity, relentless action, and the willingness to shoulder responsibility, lead from the front, and inspire courage even in the face of overwhelming odds. December 21, 1945, George S. Patton Jr., now a celebrated yet controversial figure, continued to navigate the complexities of post-war Europe. The war had ended, but the challenges of leadership, occupation, and diplomacy were as demanding as any battlefield. Patton moved through a shattered continent, overseeing the Third Army's duties, stabilizing liberated regions, and confronting both the logistical and moral dilemmas of a defeated enemy. His energy, discipline, and audacity, hallmarks of his command, remained undiminished, and his presence inspired those around him to maintain order and efficiency amidst chaos. Letters, diaries, and personal accounts from this period reveal a man deeply reflective yet impatient with bureaucracy, aware of the human cost of war but unyielding in his principles. He encountered political complexities, ethical challenges, and the task of balancing justice with pragmatism in a world recovering from total conflict. Patton's personality, brilliant, audacious, sometimes brash, shaped his interactions with Allied leaders, subordinates, and the populations under occupation. His insights into leadership, discipline, and the psychology of men remained as keen as ever, and he continued to write, reflect, and mentor, transmitting the lessons of his extraordinary military career. Tragically, in December 1945, a car accident in Germany ended Patton's life, cutting short the career of a man whose audacity, energy, and vision had reshaped modern warfare. Soldiers, historians, and civilians alike mourn the loss, recognizing that while human and flawed, Patton embodied a unique combination of courage, decisiveness, and strategic brilliance. His death immortalized him as a figure larger than life, yet profoundly human, whose accomplishments and controversies continue to provoke fascination and study. Patton's memoirs, letters, and diary entries preserve a comprehensive portrait. A man of unmatched energy and intellect, audacity and courage, yet flawed, human, and reflective. Understanding Patton requires embracing these contradictions, seeing the full spectrum of his personality, and recognizing how his audacity and vision shaped both history and the men under his command. His life demonstrates that leadership is as much about presence, decisiveness, and psychological insight as it is about tactical skill, and that the enduring impact of a commander arises not from perfection, but from boldness, courage, and relentless pursuit of objectives. Soldiers remembered tanks roaring through forests, infantry pressing forward through snow, artillery shaking the ground, and the commanding figure of a general who led from the front, inspiring extraordinary courage and commitment. Patton's legacy extends beyond military accomplishments. It resides in the lessons of audacity, energy, decisiveness, and human insight that he imparted, demonstrating how leadership under extreme conditions can transform chaos into victory and inspire generations. Posthumously, Patton became an enduring symbol of audacious command, operational genius, and human complexity. Historians and military professionals study his campaigns, writings, and personal reflections to understand how speed, momentum, decisiveness, and personal example can shape both battles and the broader arc of history. His life underscores the interplay between brilliance and fallibility, courage and humanity, strategy and emotion, leaving an indelible imprint on military thought and leadership studies. Beyond the battlefield, Patton's story resonates as a testament to human potential, demonstrating that even flawed human beings can achieve extraordinary results through energy, vision, audacity, and relentless action. Letters from soldiers describe awe, admiration, and at times fear, capturing the duality of a man who inspired greatness while challenging those around him to exceed limits. Memoirs reveal a man constantly reflecting on his choices, his failures, and his successes, illustrating the depth of insight behind his larger-than-life persona. In contemporary understanding, Patton embodies both the extremes of human ambition and the practical realities of leadership. Audacity intertwined with discipline, brilliance tempered by imperfection, and courage exercised amidst uncertainty and danger. His life, from the first days at West Point to the campaigns of World War II and the final months in post-war Europe, offers lessons in strategy, psychology, human endurance, and leadership under the most demanding conditions. Soldiers, historians, and leaders continue to draw inspiration from his methods, writings, and example, recognizing that true leadership is not merely a function of position or authority, but of energy, vision, audacity, and the ability to inspire and shape those under one's command. Patton's enduring legacy is thus twofold: the tangible victories, campaigns, and maneuvers that reshaped the course of World War II, and the intangible human lessons of courage, audacity, decisiveness, and leadership that continue to inform, inspire, and challenge generations to understand the complex interplay of brilliance, humanity, and audacious action in shaping history. His life, complex, contradictory, and extraordinary, remains a study in how one individual's energy, vision, and relentless drive can alter the course of events, inspire others, and leave an indelible mark on both history and the human imagination. Patton's story is not merely the tale of a general, but of a man who, flawed yet audacious, human yet larger than life, demonstrated the profound impact of leadership, courage, and unrelenting determination on the world around him, leaving a legacy that endures in memory, scholarship, and the continuing study of military history.